Ready. I was like this, like she's not gonna start the video.
Okay, whenever you're ready now.
How would you compare the Korean War, which you served in, to the Vietnam War? How did they seem different or alike?
Well, the Korean War started when North Korea, which was a communist country, decided they were going to invade South Korea and make the Korean Peninsula one country. They crossed the border, and at that time, Truman, who was president, was it Truman? Yes. Ordered the troops, U.S. troops, into Korea to stop the North Koreans. The difference was that the Korean War was really a war that was backed by the United Nations. The United States wasn't the only country with troops in that war. There were troops from England, from Australia, from Greece, from Turkey. So it was not really an American war, but the majority of the troops there were American. Now the difference between that war, first of all, the Korean War was only started five years after the end of World War II. So there are a lot of personnel who were fighting in Korea also fought in World War II. The Vietnam War was a war where the Vietnam government was being challenged by the Viet Cong, which was a communist organization. The United States started involvement in that war, I think it was prior to Kennedy's election, by sending advisors, just advisors over to advise the Vietnam government. In 1965, President Johnson decided that, well, we're going to go all out with this war. And it ended up with 265,000 American troops in Vietnam. There was no other country aiding in that war. It was primarily the U.S. government against the North Viet Cong troops. Like I said before, there were 58,000 American troops killed in that war. The reason people were against the war, first of all, everybody felt, what are we doing over there? I mean, that's none of our business. If they want to fight among themselves to see who's going to represent the government, that's their problem. The other thing is, the Vietnam War, they instigated the draft, okay? And people were against that. One of the reasons was that we were sending young boys, 18, 19, 20 years old, drafted over there to fight. One of the things about the draft was, if you were in college, if you were a college student, you were exempt. You weren't drafted until you finished your schooling. A lot of people sent their sons to Canada to get away from the draft. And a lot of young boys went to Canada to live to get away from the draft. So, that war was not very popular. And if you want to talk to anybody who was in that war, ask them how they felt when they came home. There were no parades saying, oh, you did a good job, blah, 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 nothing like that. There were no marching down Main Street. Most of the guys who came home took